Hi, and welcome to another episode of SWITCHCast, a podcast delving into the world of film brought to you by the team at Switch. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Charlie David Page.
I'm Jess Fenton.
I'm Daniel Lamon.
And I'm Chris Edwards.
It's Thursday, the 25th of January, 2018.
On this week's podcast, the Oscar nominations are finally here, and I captured my screeching reactions as they happened for your enjoyment and or judgment.
The ladies rocked this year's SAG Awards with a host for the very first time in Kristen Bell and all female presenters. We run this mother. I'll have the breakdown of all the haps, winners and losers.
And as always, all our reviews and giveaways.
Let's get straight into it with Tonya. Jess muscled her way onto the ice to catch this one, so did it leave you weak at the knees?
Oh my god. Yes, it was the whack heard around the world. Back in 1994, mere weeks before the Olympics, champion figure skater Tonya Harding took out her rival Nancy Kerrigan with a baton to the knee. Or did she? Back then, Nancy was the beautiful victim and Tonya was the trashy evildoer, but that's not the real story. Nancy went on to win silver at said Olympics, while Tonya secretly was the real victim, before, after, and long into the future. This is her story. Bong bong.
The haters always say, Tonya, tell the truth. Tonya. There's no such thing as truth. Everyone has their own truth.
I was the best figure skater in the world at one point in time.
Call that a clean skate, for Christ's sake?
You need to see a wholesome American family.
I don't have a wholesome American family.
You skated like a graceless bull dyke. I was embarrassed for you.
My entire life, I'd been told I wouldn't amount to anything. You know what? Maybe I would.
We're gonna need it even the playing field. I know a guy, shouldn't even be saying his name. Derek.
The press wanted me to be the pile of crap. America. They want someone to love, but they want someone to hate. I mean, come on! What kind of friggin' person bashes in their friend's knee? Who would do that to a friend?
First-time star, first-time producer, and Australian sweetheart Margot Robbie has knocked this one out of the park, and may the accolades continue to rain down upon her and her fantastic cast and crew. Australian director Craig Gillespie killed it in 2007 with Lars and the Real Girl, but since then he's made nothing but forgettable films. Like the real-life Tonya, this movie now serves as a return to grace. Using recreations of actual interviews, he said, she said, breaking the fourth wall, satire, mockery, and humour, Gillespie is using all of the tricks to create an energetic, engaging, and sympathetic story of a woman who had the whole world rooting against her well before Nancy took a fall. Robbie is Tonya Harding, sinking herself so deep into the role it's hard to tell where one woman ends and the other begins. Along for the ride is Alison Janney as Tonya's wicked, ball-busting mother. Janney has always been a favourite of mine, and finally she's just now getting the role and the piles of awards she deserves. The favourite to take out the Oscar in March, as gifted as she is, part of the credit does belong to the pet bird in some of her scenes that almost steals the show. A great, if a little on the nose soundtrack, rocks this tale of rags to restraints and attempt at redemption with a script that could have been tighter but is brought to life with great style, a great cast and a great story. Tonya nails the triple axel to get 4 stars from me.
Yeah, this is a fascinating story. I really enjoyed this film. The one thing that I will say about it is I thought it went on a little bit too long. I thought the script could have easily been, 20 minutes shorter. But besides that fact, this is a really intriguing way to do a biopic. The techniques that they use in this film are so clever, and it makes it really, really engaging. But the main thing is, this story is just nuts.
It is.
Like,
it is,
even by the
bizarre.
end of it, you don't know what's real and what's not.
Yeah, like you couldn't make this stuff up.
No, and that's the best thing. Their friend Sean is just this absolutely insane character that, like, honestly, I don't understand how this guy actually exists in real life. It is completely mental. But just everything Tonya goes through, it's amazing how by the end of it you do actually feel sympathetic for
You
it.
do, and I think one of the great things that they've employed, which a lot of biopics do, which is sort of they compare the actors to the real life counterparts. But at the end of this film, because you're sitting there going, none of that could have possibly been true. Like, they've obviously, you know, very melodramatic, overacted these actors. But then at the end, during the credits, they show you that the taped interviews that the recreations are based on, and they are spot on. Like all of these characters, which is Sean and Tonya's mother and everything, they're all like spot on, looks wise, tone wise. Even the quotes, these people are just that mental and that crazy.
But you are 100% spot on, Jess. I completely forgot Margot Robbie was actually even a part of this film. Like, she is Tonya Harding in this film. It's crazy how much she has taken on that role and just absolutely become this woman. I've read a few interviews with Margot and actually with Tonya as well, and it seems that a lot of effort has actually gone into making this film as close to her truth as possible, which is not necessarily to say it is the truth, but and which is an idea that's explored in the film. But I think it's an intriguing way to do it. It's kind of the story from her point of view.
Yeah, the only thing that I found a bit sad with the takeaway in the aftermath of this film coming out is that obviously Tonya Harding is now back in the media, back in the spotlight, and Margot even took her as a date to the Golden Globes recently, is that Tonya Harding in real life is a very damaged woman, and you'll see in the film why. And with all these new interviews that are coming out with her and stuff, she's kind of not helping herself with all the goodwill that's coming as a result of the film. Like, everyone's sort of turning around going, holy crap, I didn't know this, I didn't understand that, maybe we did all get it wrong back in the day. And then she's come out and she's a very whacked out woman, and she's a bit damaged goods, and she's constantly being caught in lies and misconceptions and things like that. And you just sort of sit there and go, oh God, when will it all end? Like, when will she finally get the break that she kind of deserves? But
I think that's her personality. She just doesn't give a shit about anybody. She doesn't care what other people think, and she doesn't do it their way. She does it her way, which, kudos to her for that. She actually said that she loved this film, which is probably the biggest endorsement it could get.
Yeah, I've seen some really interesting conversations surrounding the film. And I guess my main question for you guys, because you've actually seen it, is how do you feel about the film's treatment of Nancy Kerrigan?
It's not really about her at all. Like, she doesn't
feature.
No, she doesn't at all. Like, it's always...
Yeah, that's what I mean.
She's almost incidental. But, like, I know that Nancy's sort of come out since this as well and gone, I was the true victim, and this is too sympathetic towards Tonya. But again, like I mentioned it in my review as well, you kind of have to see this film to realise that Tonya was the victim before and after. I mean, Nancy got up, she got whacked to the knee, and it was painful and it was hard and it was splashed across every 24-hour news cycle and newspaper at the time. But she walked away from it, literally and figuratively. And 7 weeks later, she won a silver medal at the Olympics. And she became the darling and the sweetheart and the innocent victim, and she got put on the Wheaties boxes and all of that. While Tonya had everything, literally everything taken away from her. And she is still a punchline to this day for a lot of people, and was back then. So Nancy Kerrigan can sit there and say, oh, it's not fair and blah, 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 and Tonya was evil. But I finished this film with an incredibly sympathetic eye towards Tonya Harding, and I still do to this day.
Yeah. It's not like the film takes her side or anything. No. It is, in fact, very level in terms of the way it deals with some of the shit that happens with Tonya, both to her and from her. She is not a nice person. She's not necessarily a pleasant person. And it doesn't make her seem like she's perfect or good or anything like that. She's a bit of an anti-hero here. And I don't think it portrays the Nancy thing as anything more than this is just another incident in what happens in Tonya's life. Yeah. It definitely doesn't put Nancy in a bad light. As Jess says, it's very inconsequential to what actually happens in the film. Yeah. So, I can understand that maybe she's a bit upset that the focus is kind of turned to Tonya as this anti-hero in this situation. But let's be honest, this is the interesting story now. This is the untold story. This is the stuff that we don't know. And that's what makes this really interesting.
Yeah, I don't think also it's about Tonya's innocence or guilt. I think a lot of it's about the punishment didn't fit the crime. It was trial by public opinion kind of thing, and this woman was destroyed as a result, and it's really harsh, especially once you put it into context.
Yeah, but I thoroughly recommend you see this for yourself and make your own opinions, because it's a fascinating story nonetheless. But you decide if Tonya is really the hero or the villain.
Yes, and you can find my full review at maketheswitch.com.au, and I, Tonya, is in cinemas now.
Also out today is Sweet Country. Daniel hit the cinema for this Outback period piece. So how did this Australian drama fare?
Set in the Northern Territory in 1929, Aboriginal stockman Sam, played by Hamilton Morris, runs into the wilderness with his wife after he kills white station owner Harry Marsh, played by Ewan Leslie, in self-defense. Determined to bring him to justice, Sergeant Fletcher, Brian Brown, leads a team of men to track down Sam, convinced of his guilt without any understanding of the circumstances.
Harry March is dead. That black fella Sam killed him. You see it?
No. Sorry, sir. There's been a shooting.
We gonna catch this murder?
Yes, boss.
When?
Real soon, boss.
Sam's way smarter than we are. All these days, we never come within 2 miles of him. He's probably sitting out there now, looking at you, laughing.
I'm not going back. I know he's here somewhere. I'm gonna get him. Sam, coming for you. It won't be long. It won't be long, Sam!
Why did you run, Mr. Kelly?
I shot a white fella.
On the surface, Warwick Thornton's follow-up to his acclaimed Samson and Delilah seems like a straightforward, albeit spectacularly accomplished, variation on the Western. Deeper down, though, Sweet Country is something altogether more extraordinary, a powerful and furious statement on the historical abuse and extermination of the Indigenous Australian people and culture, and how that abuse has never gone away. It may be set nearly a century ago, but the film thunders with contemporary concerns in a way that leaves you overwhelmed and deeply, deeply shaken. The film is also a work of exceptional craft, with across-the-board extraordinary performances, jaw-dropping direction, a deep and intricate screenplay, perhaps the most beautiful cinematography ever in an Australian film, and truly mind-blowing editing. Sweet Country is a gargantuan film, a furious demand for acknowledgement of the blood that covers every inch of this country and that we continue to leave unacknowledged. There's no coincidence this is being released the day before Invasion Day. Its final minutes hit me like a battering ram, leaving me heaving with sobs and overwhelmed at its pain and anger. That Sweet Country is a masterpiece is without doubt. This is the first truly great film of 2018 and one of the most important Australian films ever made. 5 stars.
This is so exciting. I had heard basically nothing about this film. It's really coming in under the radar, but the fact that it's Warwick Thornton's follow-up to Samson and Delilah, which is such a fantastic film and such a fantastic Australian film, is so exciting.
I think there had been some earlier screenings for this in Sydney, and it had won the Special Jury Prize at the Venice Film Festival late last year.
And also the Toronto Film Festival as well was got several awards.
Yes. All I kept hearing was that this was something extraordinary. And so I went in expecting it to hit hard, but you can't anticipate it. You know, it kind of has all the hallmarks of what we understand of what an Australian Western might be. Like, it's similar in its pacing to The Proposition, but it's a much tighter film than The Proposition, and it has a point. Like, it has a very clear agenda. And so you're watching the film as a narrative following Sam and his wife trying to flee from being caught, along with the other narrative storylines. There's about 3 or 4 narratives running concurrently with one another, and watching the intricacies of these narratives weave together, and the way they're edited is, like, you have to see to believe. It's so ridiculously clever and incredibly powerful. But the whole time you're watching it, you're watching what is essentially a very straightforward story, and you keep getting the feeling that this is not what the film's actually about. Because it deals with the stolen generation. It deals with even Australian myth-making, not just how the myths of the Indigenous people are disappearing, but also the creation of our own myths. So it also deals with the concepts of Anzac Day, the concept of Ned Kelly, what our interaction is with the landscape. It even talks about the way that when we invaded and colonized the country, essentially turned entire tribes of people onto themselves, the loss of language, the loss of culture, the loss of the Aboriginal concept of tanderum, the concept of treaties between different nations, about how you move between areas on the landscape. It's overwhelming how much stuff is in this film, and it's kind of has this beautiful, quiet anger that at the very end just explodes.
It's also really overwhelming, the cast in this film. Like, it is a bloody solid cast, and you say that all the performances look exceptional.
Yep. And they're quite unforgiving. I mean, the Anglo-Saxon characters, apart from Sam Neill, who gives a really beautiful performance, the performance from Hamilton Morris is so understated and detailed. But the morality of the Anglo-Saxon characters is never clear, leaning possibly towards them being basically an entire body of antagonists. And the fact that the cast are willing to engage with the ugly side of what it is that we did and what it is that we continue to do is quite admirable and quite devastating to watch. But yeah, I think it's off the back of Warwick Thornton. And like, I can't emphasize enough how spectacular the direction is. And the cinematography, it's like seeing Australia in a way I've never seen it before. And probably the big reason for that is that Warwick Thornton was one of the cinematographers. So he shot the film himself along with Dylan River and just capture something about the Australian landscape in terms of its colour and its texture and its quality of light that I've never seen before. But I can't pick a fault in this film.
As Daniel said in his review, this comes out the day before Australia Day / Invasion Day. And with that particular date so prevalent at the moment in our news cycle and, you know, obviously the Change the Date campaign and everything like that, I think that this is a very aptly and incredibly fortunately timed film, and I, for one, am very excited to see it.
Feels like a lesson that is important for us to be reminded of, and this doesn't make it easy for us, which is exactly how it should be. I cannot recommend this enough. So Sweet Country is in cinemas now, and check out my full review at maketheswitch.com.au.
Also out today is Faces Places, a documentary about an unusual friendship. Chris took this in at the Melbourne International Film Festival last year. So is this a film that we should take at face value?
You know that doesn't make sense.
Makes perfect sense.
In what may prove to be her final film, Agnes Varda delivers a beautiful ode to art and a life fully lived with Faces Places. Chronicling Varda's friendship with young visual artist of JR, a tall, bearded 33-year-old permanently hidden behind dark sunglasses, the film shows the two co-directors travelling the French countryside, meeting locals, listening to their stories, and turning them into giant photographic artworks that JR emblazons across apartment buildings, barns, factories, and even rubble. Ostensibly, that's it. The entire film, all 89 minutes, is just that. And it's wonderful. Strap yourselves in, here comes some hyperbole. This is as borderline perfect as filmmaking can get, as Varda and JR have crafted one of the most ecstatically joyful, quietly moving, intellectually rigorous, and whimsically charming cinematic experiences this side of Paddington 2. There, I said it. Each interaction they share with their subjects, the assorted inhabitants of the French countryside, reveals untold depths of feeling within everyday stories, but never in a way that feels exploitative or as if these bourgeois snobs are aestheticizing quote-unquote regular people. Rather, the filmmakers are thoroughly interrogating themselves at all times, careful to show negative or complicated responses to the artworks from their subjects, just as often as they show the overwhelmingly positive ones. And it has to be said, the artworks themselves are stunningly gorgeous. Single images from this film have been rattling around in my head for 6 months now, with the visualizations of the condition causing Varda's eyesight to slowly disappear particularly haunting and evocative. In my full review on our site, I quote the great philosopher of our times, Tilda Swinton, who once called cinema the ultimate compassion machine, the empathy engine. I can think of no better way to describe this wonderful, inspiring, soul-stirring, and stunningly empathetic film, and I'm giving it 5 stars.
Okay. Last year when we did our top 5 films, I think it was the first year in a while that a documentary did not feature on my list, and it absolutely broke my heart because they just weren't around last year. I think I only actually saw one, which was an Inconvenient sequel. So I am so excited to see this film. I also can't help with your last little sign off there. If this were to eventually become a feature film, surely Tilda is going to play our lead lady there.
Oh, God, I hope so. Put her in the Grand Budapest Hotel makeup and she can be 90-year-old Agnes Varda.
She could be the pile of rubble they put the artwork on.
Oh, my God, that would be incredible. But yes, speaking of top 5s, like, I was devastated when I realized that the release date was in January, so early into 2018, because I was so excited to talk about this film from, like, August, because I knew that it was one of my favorites. And it already is. Like, I can say for certain that it's going to be on my top 5 of 2018. Between this and one other film that's coming out in about a month or so, I've basically got my top 2 films of the year locked up. This film is so beautiful. I feel like such an idiot. Like, I'm just this ranting, raving lunatic talking about this film because it's like, it's really an hour and 20 minutes without credits. Like, and it's just these two people kind of traveling the French countryside. But it's so beautiful. I was in this sold out audience at the Melbourne Film Festival and I was crying. I was definitely the youngest person there. And we were all just having this wonderful communal experience, just focusing on art and how wonderful it is and what a privilege it is to create art. And as someone who does that themselves, it was really inspirational.
Has she indicated that this might be her last film, or has she, because it's been so well received?
I really hope not, but it's kind of looking possible. She is 90 years old, and in the film it goes into the condition that is causing her eyesight to fail, and it's really beautifully realized. But also in the film, what's striking is just the opening credits, which go on for a little bit because of the sheer amount of individual people that have to be credited as helping the film find funding. So she's 90 years old, her vision is failing, and she's finding it harder and harder to find funding for her films, which I think is really devastating.
Considering who she is.
Yeah, considering who she is. She was the only female in the boys' club of the French New Wave, which is one of the most important cinematic movements of all time.
And she's one of the last left, isn't she? Like, it's her and Godard. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all that's left, isn't it?
Yes, which becomes part of the film in a really interesting way towards the end and leads to this one scene, which, I don't know, I've seen some reactions that have said that it seems a bit staged, this one particular scene that people will know if they've seen it. But I don't. It's this really kind of heart-wrenching expression of genuine, in-the-moment emotion from Varda, which is kind of, it really takes you back because of this complicated relationship with Godard. But yeah, it's such a fantastic film.
How exciting.
And you can find my full review at maketheswitch.com.au, and Faces Places is in cinemas now.
The Jungle Bunch is also in cinemas today. This fun and lovable gang are set to leap from television to cinemas. This ragtag and mismatched group of unlikely heroes led by Maurice, the great tiger-striped penguin warrior, is set to face their biggest challenge ever. When life in the jungle is threatened by the evil koala Igor and his mercenary monkeys, the Jungle Bunch team up with their mentors and champions to counter his dastardly master plan.
Igor is the worst enemy that we've ever faced.
No one will stand in our way to destroy the jungle.
Isn't it kind of dangerous to destroy the jungle? How about we go kick some koala butt?
It's too dangerous.
Come on, Mom. It doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt.
Banzai! It doesn't hurt.
Actually, it's starting to sting a little bit.
Based on the animated series airing on the ABC in Australia, The Jungle Bunch is a surefire way to keep kids occupied for a cool 30 minutes. My eyes are watering. I'm so sorry. I can't get that out. Yes.
And in our continuing series at Switch of animated films that none of us have seen and none of us understand the existence of, we present The Jungle Bunch. So what do we got here, then?
Listening to that plot summary, I feel like I finally know what it feels like to have an aneurysm. Because a lot of things just happened, and I feel like a part of me is gone.
So, Daniel, this is actually a French animation.
Oh, Jesus,
which I'm
great.
sure, yeah.
No wonder it sounds like a fucking hoot.
An evil koala.
Yeah, weirdly. It has been revoiced in English language, but yeah. The other really fun fact about this is it only has 36% on Rotten Tomatoes, 24% audience score, which possibly is one of the lowest scores I've ever seen for an animated film.
Yeah, talking animals, surefire hit, but nope.
The first line of the IMDb plot summary is even better. Maurice may look like a penguin, but he's a real tiger inside.
Jesus.
Same.
So Maurice, looking at the pictures, it's a penguin raised by a tiger, and it's painted itself to look like a what the fuck? It's called Les As de la Jungle.
Yep.
That's terrible. Cut that.
Don't you fucking dare cut it. This idiot needs to know to never speak French again.
All right, let's move on to something a little bit more exciting. Finally, Manifesto is showing exclusively at Acme in Melbourne from this Sunday. From acclaimed visual artist Julian Rosfeld, the film features two-time Academy Award-winning legend Cate Blanchett in 13 distinct vignettes that incorporate timeless manifestos from 20th century art movements. From Anchorwoman to Homeless Man, from pop art to Dogma 95, the chameleonic Blanchett gives a tour de force performance as she transforms herself like never before.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. All current art is fake.
Forms move and are born, and we are forever making new discoveries.
To the electric chair with shotgun. Nothing is original, okay? So you can steal from anywhere that resonates with inspiration and fuels your imagination. Okay?
Rosfeld has woven together history's most impassioned artistic statements in this stunning and contemporary call to action.
Okay, so our last discussion was a bit shapeless and formless and a bit long, but this one's going to be quite short because I'm the only one talking. No one else is going to speak. I'm talking now. I'm Roxy Andrews and I'm here to make it clear. So this Manifesto was an exhibit, essentially, at Acme, and I missed it because I'm an idiot and I hate myself. And now it has been re-edited into a single feature film, and that's very exciting, and it's coming out in Melbourne. And guess what, kids? Yesterday I moved from Melbourne to Sydney, and I'm missing this. I'm missing it again, and I hate everything, and I'm done with life. Okay.
Just to clarify, though, it was your choice to move, right?
How fucking dare you? I said that I was the only one speaking. Let's move on. Did I stutter?
I, for one, as a Melburnian, am very much looking forward to finding time to go and see this film.
That's absolutely not
time. Do I have time? I don't have time. But it is. I mean, this just sounds so fucking cool. Like, it's just a really great idea for an art project.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that at some point it is released in some form that is more easily accessible, because obviously there's no reason to put this in multiple cinemas. It's such a niche thing for a very particular audience. But hopefully there will be a point where it becomes much more accessible for people who can't make it to Acme, our friend Chris included. Yes, for Chris's sake.
Me.
Yes.
Hopefully at some point it becomes more accessible for me. I don't care about you idiots. Me. I want it. I want it
Throwing
in my
us under the
eyeballs.
bus. It's like Alice and Jenny and Margaret.
Yeah, it needs a wider release because, I don't know, this is a very, tree falling in the woods sort of thing. But if art doesn't have an audience, is it really art?
Bitch, yes. Oh, the question. The great question.
I hate everything that's happening.
You just hate because
I hate everything. Guys, I said I was the only one talking and that it was going to be a short thing. Why is no one listening to me? I just want to cry about
fucking dare us. How very dare us speak
on a podcast that we discuss things.
Sorry, Chris.
All right, let's keep Chris happy and move on swiftly. Let's have a look at the new films coming out in our trailer wrap. Here's the first look at Gus Van Sant's new film, Don't Worry, He Won't Get Far on Foot.
So, John, do you want to tell us about your drinking?
Well, I started drinking when I was 13. I liked it a lot, and I never stopped.
People say we got it made. Don't they know we're so afraid?
This doesn't just go away. You have to fight with it, or you'll die.
So
something really profound just happened to me, man.
Aren't you glad you met us?
John doesn't like us.
Well, of course I like you. You're crazy.
We like you too.
Wait till you get to know me.
So the interesting thing about this film, the new film starring Joaquin Phoenix and Rooney Mara and Jack Black and
Jonah Hill? Yes.
Interesting cast, is that it is essentially, my favorite thing that I've seen about it is that it essentially Sundance the movie. So it's part of this year's Sundance Film Festival, which just kicked off at the weekend, and it's kind of ticking all the boxes. It's this small independent feature. It's a true story. It's about a disability. It's about alcoholism. It's Joaquin Phoenix. It's like, oh wow. And the responses have been unkind.
Yeah, there were some grumbles of discontent before the film even released about the fact that, this probably links back to what Brent was talking about last week, but, Joaquin Phoenix is playing someone with a disability, and why isn't someone with a disability playing this character? I mean, it doesn't look like from the trailer that being able-bodied and being able to walk is a requirement to play the part, because the character doesn't look like he does. It just reignited that. Kind of from a trailer standpoint, it just kind of looks like, Sundance the movie, or Oscar the movie. Like, it looks quite perfunctory. It looks like it ticks literally every drama box you would possibly want it to tick. And Gus Van Sant, I mean, he's, I Own Private Idaho and Milk and Elephant, but he hasn't really made a good film in a while.
It's interesting, this is an Amazon Studios production, and It's funny that you kind of say that it does seem very ticking boxes kind of film, because I just find a lot of their films end up that way. It's almost like a list that they have for their particular audience, and they're just like, okay, so we're going to include this, and this. I find that's really typical of a lot of Amazon Studios productions. Maybe that's just me.
Like Manchester by the Puddle.
Yes, that's the thing. That's Abomination.
But also, Rooney Mara looks like she's just been stuck. She's stuck in this like alternate dimension where all she has to play is girlfriends who just sit around and support, but don't actually have a character. Like, I know this is just a trailer, but that's I walked and was like, I saw this performance. It was called Lion, and it wasn't good there either.
I'm so angry about that movie.
This is the woman who played the girl with the dragon tattoo, for fuck's sake. What's going on, Rooney? You're in Carol. We expect better from you. We're all rooting for you.
How dare you? I'm not having this. I'm still amped up after my Manifesto discussion, and I will not have you attack Rooney Mara over this. Do you really think Rooney Mara is to blame for this, Daniel? How dare you?
No, this is true. This is very true. I do love Rooney Mara, and I just want better for her. Because she's just...
But she doesn't seem to want better for herself, which is, I think, the most disturbing part.
Ooh, let's get real.
Sorry, I'm just saying.
She hasn't made the best choices in films.
Carol.
There's been a few hits and a lot more misses.
I've heard incredible things about A Ghost Story.
Actually, she is very good in A Ghost Story, but she's very much the supporting character in A Ghost Story. I mean, she's a supporting character to a sheet. But she's
I mean, I understand that she's anti-celebrity, but she seems to think that the only way to stay that way is by making these very under-the-radar films, and it's not. She's very misguided about this, I feel, and she needs to do better for herself.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, she's got Mary Magdalene of all films coming out this year.
That is true. At least she's in a leading role in that. You know, that's one thing we're pretty much guaranteed on.
Sure, she's not going to get upstaged by Jesus?
Anything is possible.
I don't know. I finally watched the trailer for that the other day before seeing The Post. Such a great film. I'll take any opportunity to praise The Post.
The Post.
But that film looks wild.
Are we talking like Last Temptation of Christ wild or Passion of the Christ wild? Like, which wild we're talking here? Because one's positive.
No, neither. Like, it looks like Nancy Meyers' The Easter Story. Like, what?
What trailer did you
understand
watch?
what that means? Yeah.
Anyway, we love Rooney Mara. We want to see Rooney Mara in more lead roles. This is not a lead role. Put her in lead roles.
Let's also start a small rumor about the fact that Joaquin Phoenix and she are both in this film plus Mary Magdalene together. So
What rumor? What rumor are we going to start? What rumor we start?
Any kind of rumor you want, really.
I'm really happy about that, regardless of rumors. But just, I think that's something that doesn't happen as often as it should, particularly when you look at like old Hollywood, where the same stars who had such fantastic chemistry together would then star in like 10, 12, 15 films together, where that chemistry would be mined and explored in multiple new ways. And I think that's something we've really missed out on in the current celebrity climate. Just to get real for a second. There you go.
I don't know. Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone seem to do it pretty well.
True.
Yeah, but like that's really the only example.
Yeah.
And most of the time it's out of the publicity and not out of actually just the joy of seeing two actors who know each other's rhythms and know each other well enough.
All right, now let's take a look at Daniel Radcliffe's Beast of Burden.
Sean, you are doing the right thing here. She needs to get better. I promise you treatment for your wife.
You're a drug mule, Sean. Don't think for a second you're anything more.
Something feels off about this right now.
Just tell me that everything's gonna be okay.
Everything will be okay.
There's a change in plans. A new drop zone. From this point on, you check in every 10 minutes.
This isn't the plan. They rerouted me.
I need those coordinates. Don't forget the deal. You give me the cartel. Jen gets her surgery.
What would you miss most if your wife was gone?
They have Jen.
Who doesn't?
They took her.
I would never have agreed to this. No.
So let's get real for a minute and let's have a chat about how to not make a film trailer. I am going to comment on the film because I don't know anything about the film because it's not a very good trailer. Now, this trailer, for one thing, is so dark in its grading that it's actually impossible to see anything in the frame.
It's true, it may as well not be Daniel Radcliffe.
It's like the teaser trailer for Mother, except I'm not interested. Then on top of that, you have those zoom out titles in like bold red dramatic lettering against like a thunderstorm.
Very iMovie.
This is a bad trailer, and I don't know whether this film will be good. It might be. It could be a really good, really enjoyable film. But this is not how you sell a film. This is a bad trailer. For those of you who want to know how to not make a trailer, please watch the trailer for Beast of Burden as an example.
On another note, I want to focus more on Daniel Radcliffe. He has a fame that is bigger than Ben-Hur that will never go away, and he could just slink off into the darkness and never work again, or he could
slink off into the darkness like he's some sort of reptile, like he came out from under a rock, started 8 films and slithered back.
I don't know. Have you seen him shirtless? It's a pretty accurate description.
Oh,
He's got a strange life body. I'm not insulting him. I'm about it. But, like, let's be real, kids.
Moving on. So, he could do that, or he could continue to make nothing but big studio blockbusters. But he doesn't. He makes the films that he wants to make, and I find that really interesting, and I find it really brave. He makes risky films, and sometimes they pay off, and sometimes they don't. But I think he's always great in them, and I think he makes really interesting choices, and I find him really fascinating as an actor and a performer, and all the choices that he does make. And so this might be one of his failures. It might not be based on the trailer. It's probably, on that side. But but you never know. Trailers can be misleading, and I still love him.
Are we sure this isn't like a fan-made trailer? Like, are we sure? Because, like, I watched that fake Friends trailer yesterday, and that was better made than this.
Wow.
It is a really weird trailer. Like, you have to wonder what drew Daniel Radcliffe to this.
Or what's going on.
My theory is it's something to do with him really not wanting to be typecast as Harry Potter. That's my assumption.
Well, he's doing a great job because he's played a farting corpse, and now he's playing a drug mule, and he's played
a neo-Nazi.
Romantic comedy, and he's played...
He was a guy who got lost in a jungle at one stage.
Yes.
In a film titled Jungle.
He's played a nude horse lover, and he's played, it's, like I said...
It's diverse, for sure.
He picks risky follow-ups.
Now he's playing a drug mule / he's kind of being blackmailed by the CIA to uncover this drug cartel.
By the hot leprechaun from American Gods. Let's point out the hot leprechaun.
Or his wife will die of cancer. Like, it's such a fucking weird story.
I mean, like, same. Who hasn't been there? Like, that's my Tuesday.
He's such an everyman. That's what I like about him most.
I don't know. It's like fucking John Wick had
could fly a
plane. Had a baby with American Maid.
The like film itself, the actual film itself of John Wick.
I think we can all readily agree that this film is not necessarily going to be one of the best of the year.
No.
All right, finally, let's take the first look at the new Aussie comedy, That's Not My Dog.
So what's this party all about anyhow, son?
Oh, it's just a party, Dad.
Yeah, I'm told they're going to bring some jokes along. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. There was these 4 nuns, right? This is a true story.
So this guy goes to the confessional.
There's this jumbo jet.
All right, I've got one for you.
This penguin decides to take himself for a drive.
Remember the guy who breaks into the Queen's bedroom years ago?
Absolutely nothing is happening.
Are there any questions?
Everyone loves music, and most people absolutely devour live music like it was oxygen. I'm not that person. I devour live comedy. I'm absolutely and utterly obsessed with stand-up comedy, and I usually go see a show a week if I can. So this film has got me really, really excited. I don't think Australians are known for their filmmaking, but they are known for their stand-up comedy. We produce really, truly great comedians, and they end up going off and having great international careers. So this one with Shane Jacobson as star in this sort of semi-documentary style, kind of like The Aristocrats film, with the best of the best that Australia has to offer in terms of comedy, I'm crazy excited about this film. So we've got Tim Ferguson, you've got Jim Owen, you've got Michaela Barnes, you've got Fiona O'Loughlin, you've got, like I said, you've got Shane Jacobson, you've got, there's too many to name, but it's a massive cast, and I'm hoping it's going to be as hilarious as the idea.
I do have a question, though. off the base of this trailer. Because when I first saw the advertising for this, I went, oh, so it's a documentary about a whole bunch of comedians sitting around and telling like jokes to one another. And I actually was like, that's actually quite charming. I like that. This trailer, though, suggests that there might be a narrative, and that seems a little cheap.
I'm equating it to porn for the stand-up comedy genre. I don't know. It's a bit weird. There's this really very, very loose storyline kind of tying together the reason why they're all there.
Yeah, I think
it just seems like a bit of a weird excuse to just tell a bunch of jokes. Like, I think you could have made it much more realistic and just
sit around and tell a bunch of jokes.
Exactly. But I don't know. Like, I think when it comes to the actual film itself, I think it's going to be a fucking riot. I think it's going to be hilarious. So
yeah, just will nicely bookend these, this party with all these people in it.
I don't know. Count me as the one on the podcast who's kind of looking at this film with extreme side eye.
Oh, something new and fun for Chris.
Yeah, who'd have thunk it?
Yeah, Striker.
Oh, look, he's being cynical.
Oh, yeah. Like, I love a lot of these people, but I'm just like,
why though? Like, why though? Why?
Let's wait and see how many of the jokes are completely tonally inappropriate in the current climate. That'll be interesting.
This will make more money than Sweet Country and probably win the actor award for best film. Like, that's the state of the world we're in.
Well, you can catch That's Not My Dog in Australian cinemas from the 8th of March. And to check out all those trailers and more, head to youtube.com/MakeTheSwitchAU.
After months of speculation, arguments, and crossing of fingers and toes, the Oscar nominations have finally been announced. With so many wonderful films in contention, there are bound to be a few shocks and surprises, and what better way to experience this roller coaster than capturing my initial, high-pitched, hyperbole-laden reactions as they happened earlier this week. So let's start with makeup and hairstyling. This one's always a bit of fun, because there's usually something in here we never expect. Darkest Hour. For some reason. Victoria and Abdul and Wonder. Oh yeah, Wonder? Yep, sure, alright. What can we do next? Let's go with costume design. And let's all cross our fingers and hope that when I click this button, Beauty and the Beast isn't on there. And Beauty and the Beast is on there. So there is no God. Darkest Hour, Phantom Thread, Shape of Water, and Victoria and Abdul. Let's jump to production design. Let's have a look. So, Beauty and the Beast again. Okay. Blade Runner 2049, Darkest Hour, Dunkirk, and The Shape of Water. So I reckon The Shape of Water probably would have that one in the bag. Let's go to film editing. And that is Baby Driver, a film editing nominee. Very good. Dunkirk, I, Tonya, The Shape of Water, and 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Okay, so, all right. But actually, Baby Driver is a surprise. That's quite lovely. And let's follow that with probably, I think, one of the technical awards I'm the most excited about, which is cinematography. And let's hope that we see Roger Deakins' name on there. And we do. Roger Deakins for Blade Runner 2049. Darkest Hour? Really? That's bizarre. Hoytma for Dunkirk, and our first ever female nominee for Best Cinematography, Rachel Morrison for Mudbound. That is excellent, and hopefully a very good sign of what is to come. And then The Shape of Water finishes off the 5. So now let's jump to the music. Let's start by just ripping the Band-Aid off and seeing how many song nominees The Greatest Showman has gotten. All right. It only got 1. Thank God for This Is Me, which I guess everyone was expecting. Remember Me from Coco is nominated, which I think is considered the frontrunner. Stand Up for Something from Marshall has also been nominated. Mighty River from Mudbound has been nominated, but Mystery of Love from Call Me By Your Name is nominated, which means not only should it win, but also we get to see Sufjan Stevens perform at the Oscars, and everybody would love that. Let's do foreign language film. Now, this is a really exciting one, but also one that has the potential to be a bit of a disappointment because of how many really great foreign language films were up for this award. A Fantastic Woman. Fantastic Woman has been nominated from Chile. The Insult from Lebanon. Loveless from Russia, which I think was to be expected. On Body and Soul from Hungary. And The Square from Sweden, which I think is probably going to be considered the frontrunner. Bizarrely, In the Fade, which won the Golden Globe, has not been nominated. Okay, now we get to original score. Usually the way this one goes is there's 4 amazing nominees and then one bizarre one that no one can understand. So let's have a look. Okay, Dunkirk's been nominated for Hans Zimmer, which was to be expected. Phantom Thread for Johnny Greenwood. The Shape of Water. John Williams for Star Wars The Last Jedi. And Carter Burwell for 3 Billboards. Best Animated Feature. Now, the thing about that animated feature from previous years is that usually there's a film that's snubbed, that no one understands, but it's also a great chance to have unacknowledged animated features pop up. Usually there's some great ones from around the world. Let's see what we've got. The Boss Baby? Okay. The Boss Baby is a nominee. What a world we live in. The Breadwinner, which I think has won a few awards. Coco, obviously. Ferdinand and Loving Vincent are our best animated feature nominees. The Boss Baby is... Yep, okay. Sure, Oscars. That's a great move. Okay, so let's jump to the writing categories. So, the first one we'll go to is Adapted Screenplay. Let's have a look and see... James Ivory's name is on there for Call Me By Your Name. The Disaster Artist. Logan! That's a surprise. A wonderful surprise. Molly's Game. Aaron Sorkin's Molly's Game, which, that's all right. And Mudbound. Okay, original screenplay. This one is a fucking battle to who's going to get these 5 spots. I know there's a few that I want to see on this. Let's have a look. The Big Sick, Get Out, Lady Bird, The Shape of Water, and 3 Billboards Outside of Missouri. So, that's pretty good. All right, now let's go to direction. This is a category I take very seriously, considering it is literally my job. So let's see if there were any surprises, such as women, on this list. Yes! Greta Gerwig is an Oscar nominee, as is Jordan Peele. Oh, that's so great. Dunkirk for Christopher Nolan, obviously, that's great. Phantom Thread for Paul Thomas Anderson, which would be his first nomination, I think, since There Will Be Blood. And Guillermo del Toro for The Shape of Water. Unfortunately, there's no Luca Guadagnino, but there's also no Martin McDonagh. This is a very good list, but the 2 big ones that we really wanted to see be acknowledged, Jordan Peele and Greta Gerwig, so we have an African-American director, and we have a female director. That's the best list. That is a really good list. Like, I'm happy for any of them to win. That's great. Best directing. Hopefully a great sign of things to come as we step to the acting categories. Let's start with actress in a supporting role. This has been pretty locked in most of the time, so let's have a look. Mary J. Blige for Mudbound, Alison Janney for I, Tonya, Leslie Manville for Phantom Thread, Laurie Metcalf for Lady Bird, and Octavia Spencer for The Shape of Water. The Oscars love Octavia Spencer, and there's no question why, and she's beautiful in The Shape of Water. This is a good list. This is a very good list. Now we have actor in a supporting role. This has always been a bit in flux. There's usually 1 or 2 definites, but let's see who they've put in for supporting role. William Dafoe for Florida Project, as expected. Woody Harrelson for 3 Billboards. Sure. Richard Jenkins for Shape of Water. Beautiful. Christopher Plummer for All the Money in the World. Oscar nomination for 7 Days Work. And Sam Rockwell for 3 Billboards, which was to be expected. He's the front runner. But no Oscar nomination for Michael Stuhlbarg for Call Me By Your Name. All right, Best Actress, which is always a big category because there's usually more than 5 people that should be in this category. But let's have a look and see who we ended up with. Sally Hawkins for The Shape of Water, Frances McDormand for 3 Billboards, Margot Robbie for I, Tonya, Saoirse Ronan for Lady Bird, and Meryl Streep for The Post. That's a pretty damn good list. All right, an actor in a leading role. We all know who I want to see on this list, and we all know who I want to see win this, so let's just rip off the Band-Aid. Timothée Chalamet for Call Me By Your Name, Daniel Day-Lewis for Phantom Thread, Daniel Kaluuya for Get Out. Oh, that's great. He got an Oscar nomination. Oh, that's wonderful. Gary Oldman for Darkest Hour, we knew that. And Denzel Washington for Roman J. Israel Esquire. But Daniel Kaluuya for Get Out, that is fucking spectacular. There was a lot of talk early on that was a nomination that should happen, but that most people probably weren't going to acknowledge his work in it. But there he is. Okay, and the big one, the Best Picture. So, because of the rules that were changed a few years ago, there can be up to 10 Best Picture nominees. And there's a big playing field this year for who could be up there. So let's have a look. Call Me By Your Name is nominated, as is Darkest Hour, Dunkirk, Lady Bird, Phantom Thread, The Post, The Shape of Water, and 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. And they're your Best Picture nominees. The only surprise in that is Darkest Hour, because why is that there? It's a pretty solid list. But Call Me By Your Name is nominated. I would have liked to have seen it get a few more nominations, obviously. But I gotta say, that's not the worst Oscars nominee list I've ever seen. What's gonna win? Who the fuck knows anymore? So that's it. Your Oscar nominees for 2018. Thank you for listening to my horrible screeching voice. And we will see what happens at the start of March. Make sure you stick with maketheswitch.com.au and SWITCHCast for the next few weeks as we bring you all the Oscar news and obviously give you live feeds on the day. We'll see you then.
24 years ago, actors decided that they don't get enough awards or moments to praise each other's work publicly, so they decided to create the SAG Awards, an evening where all proud, card-carrying members of the acting fraternity can give out what Frances McDormand called doorstops. God, I love that woman. 2018 was the year of the women, a decision apparently made before the Me Too and Time's Up movement. Sporting a host for the very first time in the ceremony's history, the adorable Kristen, Princess Anna Bell, took centre stage, and it didn't take long to see why they've been hostless for so long. It's not like Kristen did a bad job, it's just that she didn't have a lot to work with. This is not a ceremony filled with musical performances, a grand opening number, or laughs. Another thing it's lacking, this year at least, is surprises. If you've been paying attention to any of the awards shows these past few months, then you know exactly who won. Like the Golden Globes, the SAGs award both film and television, but with the Oscars mere weeks away, I'll focus on that side of things. Frances and Sam Rockwell took home gongs for 3 Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri, practically walking themselves into Oscars glory come March 5th. Surprise, surprise! Is the sarcasm coming through in my voice? I, Tonya's Alison Janney won Best Supporting Female Actor, while Churchill's doppelganger, Gary Oldman, stole the Best Male Actor win from Timothée Chalamet. But I digress. Wonder Woman won, that's fun to say, Wonder Woman won Best Stunt Ensemble, and after walking away with 2 acting awards earlier in the evening from 3 nominations, 3 Billboards won Best Acting Ensemble up against The Big Sick, Get Out, Mudbound, and Lady Bird, practically guaranteeing their Best Picture win in March, with 4 of the last 5 casts to win this award going on to win the Oscar as well. And that's the SAGs that was.
We have some great giveaways on offer this week. We have 10 double passes to see Molly's Game up for grabs. Starring Jessica Chastain and Idris Elba, the film tells the thrilling true story of Molly Bloom, the mastermind behind a glamorous underground poker empire whose players include the rich, famous, and most powerful men in America. The film also marks the directorial debut for acclaimed screenwriter Aaron Sorkin.
We're also giving away 5 copies of Home Again on Blu-ray this week. Reese Witherspoon stars in this romantic comedy about a single mum whose new life in Los Angeles takes an unexpected turn when she takes in 3 unlikely house guests, struggles to reinvent her career, and finds herself entangled in a new relationship. To win this and all our great giveaways, head to maketheswitch.com.au/comps now.
And before we go, we'd like to offer you some cinematic inspiration with each of us suggesting one film you should see this week and why. Now, for me, I've been on a bit of an animated films stint of late.
Of like the last 3 months.
Yeah, no, it's been last 2 months. But anyway, yeah, they make me happy. What can I say?
Whatever makes you happy, dear.
I'm going to continue that trend because I caught up on a film which Jess and I saw quite a while ago now. But I watched it again and remembered how much I loved it. It was 2010's Megamind.
Yes! Oh, no.
Which is surprisingly funny.
Oh, so good.
I went into this film not expecting to enjoy it at all. And I went into it again recently thinking that it will have kind of dated badly. But no, it's kind of hilarious. And I really don't like Will Ferrell that much. So for me to say that that I enjoy this film is quite something.
Yeah. It's got such a good voice cast in it too. Along with Will
It's
Ferrell.
true.
Yeah, you got Jonah Hill, Brad Pitt,
Tina Fey,
David Cross, Ben Stiller, Justin
And,
Theroux.
amongst fierce competition, it is the most visually ugly of all DreamWorks animated films. So it's got that going for it.
Sadly, it isn't aesthetically very appealing. I will agree with you there. But I think the comedy and the story itself and the cast make up for that fact. And it's just kind of nice to have this super villain. And then he's actually ends up being a good guy. I like it. So, yeah, Megamind is my pick for the week.
Yay.
Jessica, how about you?
Yeah, I'm going nostalgic again. I'm going with 1991 film called Toy Soldiers, not to be confused with the 1998 film called Small Soldiers. Toy Soldiers is about small soldiers and Small Soldiers is about toy soldiers. You still with me?
That is so true. I'd never thought about that.
It's kind of like how Greenland is icy and Iceland is green. Anyway, so Toy Soldiers stars Sean Astin, Will Wheaton, Louis Gossett Jr. It's directed by Daniel Petrie Jr. He's a writer-director who's most famous for writing the fabulous Turner and Hooch and Beverly Hills Cop 1 and 2. You excited?
Whoop.
Who's excited? But this is not a comedy. This is actually a film about a prestigious boarding school and sort of like the bad eggs of the school led by Sean Astin end up saving it when a bunch of terrorists take all the boys in the school hostage and they've sort of got to fight them all. It's actually really, really well done. It's a lot of fun. I know a lot of people would probably compare this to the 80s film Red Dawn and its god-awful remake with Chris Hemsworth in it. It's not, yeah, there are similarities, but Red Dawn sucks and Toy Soldiers is awesome. And so if you're feeling very nostalgic, very 90s, as I do so very often, Toy Soldiers is the way to go.
Alrighty, Daniel, you are up next. What are you bringing to the table this week?
Oh, I'm changing the tone. I am going to recommend this week probably one of the most wickedly evil films ever made, and one of my absolute favourites.
Megamind?
No, surprisingly.
You can't recommend your own sex tapes, Daniel.
It's probably as traumatic a film for some audiences. I'm recommending Michael Haneke's 1997 diabolical masterpiece, Funny Games. So the premise of the film is this. This very well-to-do family, German family, go to stay at a house by a lake. And this young man, all in white, knocks on the door and says that he needs some help. And what transpires is this family become captured by this young man and his friend and submitted to a series of games over the course of the weekend that put them in tremendous danger. This sounds like basically every kind of home invasion film you've ever seen, but there is a quality to Funny Games that I won't ruin here that takes you completely by surprise and had me, when I first saw it, literally yelling at the TV, "You can't do that. That's not the way film works." This is a film that actually takes the form of cinema and turns it on the audience. It's a film that's aware that someone is actually watching it. And what Haneke does with the film form is extraordinary. It's not for the faint-hearted. It's tough, and it's as fucked up as you can imagine, but it's amazing. Michael Haneke's 1997 masterpiece, Funny Games. Make sure it's the German one and not the English remake. The English remake's good, but the performances in the German one are slightly better.
Cool. Good choice, Daniel. And last but not least, Chris, what kind of shambles are you bringing us this week?
Well, I thought I'd be a decent human being for the first time in my life and not actually cheat and, pick something random like a different podcast or a book just to fuck with you, Charlie. So instead, I thought I'd go with the theme of films from the Melbourne International Film Festival that I've raved about after my review for Faces Places. And I'm picking a German film from a few years ago called Phoenix. I'll read the plot because it sounds like a bit of a melodrama, but it's about a woman in the aftermath of World War II, a Jewish Holocaust survivor who has gone through intense facial reconstruction surgery after a bullet wound to the face. And she returns to her home in Berlin, where she has to confront her husband, who may have been the person who dobbed her in to the Nazis. But he doesn't recognize her because of this extensive plastic surgery that she's undertaken. And so this kind of dance begins between the two, where he realizes that she has this uncomfortable resemblance to the woman he believes has died and was his wife. And she is trying to figure out if he was indeed the man who betrayed her and what her feelings towards him are. And it's stunning. It sounds like a melodrama, but it's so quiet and so knotty and complicated. And she is it's one of the greatest female performances of recent years. And it ends in one of the most shattering and haunting final scenes I've ever encountered in a cinema. I remember this in the cinema. It was this sold out huge cinema in Hoyts in the city, and you could cut the tension with a knife. Everyone was on the edge of their seats, but it's this very simple scene with a musical performance that is just incredible. I've rewatched it many times, like just that scene many times since seeing it, and it haunts me. It's one of the best endings to a film I have ever seen, and I'm not exaggerating. So yeah, Phoenix. It's really fantastic. And the director has a new film coming out this year that's premiering at the Berlin Film Festival in just a month or so. So yeah, Phoenix.
Chris rising from the ashes there. Some great suggestions.
You sat there for all that time waiting to drop that, didn't you? You fuck.
You can thank me later.
Oh, I shall not.
Look, you can find the links to all the articles we've talked about on this week's podcast at maketheswitch.com.au, and please subscribe to SWITCHCast on iTunes or your favorite podcast platform, and don't forget to rate us. Stay in touch with us on Twitter as well. I'm at Charlie_David. Jess.
At Miss Jess_Switch.
Daniel.
At Daniel Lamon.
And Chris.
At Chris C. Edwards.
Like it, follow it. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at MakeTheSwitchAU to stay up to date with all the latest reviews, news, trailers, and giveaways.
And you can find all the notes and links to everything we've discussed on this week's podcast, as well as other episodes by visiting switchcast.com.au.
On next week's show, I'll be going all in and taking a gamble on Molly's Game.
Plus, we'll have a verdict on Daniel Day-Lewis's final film, Phantom Thread. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you all next week.